Have you ever felt that the world discarded you? That people turned their backs exactly when you needed them most? Maybe the truth is even more brutal. You didn't pull away because they wanted to eliminate you. You pulled away because you stopped serving other people's purposes. Carl Jung said we live behind masks, playing roles we didn't even choose, just to be accepted. But what happens when you decide to take off the mask? When you stop being useful to the system, to expectations, to social games that were never really yours, the silence is deafening, people disappear, and you're left there, alone, wondering if you did something wrong. But what if I told you that this distancing isn't rejection? It's liberation disguised as abandonment. Think with me. Since childhood, we learned that we need to be useful to be loved. Useful to parents, to teachers, to friends, to bosses. Our entire existence has been conditioned to a silent but devastating question: what can you do for me? And we naively believed that if we were useful enough, we would be indispensable. That if we solved other people's problems, they would never leave us. But life has a cruel way of teaching us otherwise. Jung spent decades studying the human psyche and reached a disturbing conclusion. Most of our relationships aren't real relationships. They're transactions, invisible contracts where each party offers something in exchange for acceptance, security, or validation. You're the friend who always gives advice? Perfect, as long as the problems exist. You're the employee who never complains? Wonderful, until they find someone who'll accept less. You're the partner who erases themselves to keep the peace? Ideal, until your absence of identity becomes inconvenient. The uncomfortable truth is that many people don't love you for who you are. They love you for what you do. And when you stop doing, when you stop serving, when you stop carrying weight that was never yours to begin with, they disappear like smoke. It's not personal, it's structural. We've built an entire society based on utility, not humanity. But here's the part nobody tells you. This distancing you feel, this loneliness that seems like an abyss, can be the portal to your true existence. Jung talked about the process of individuation, that painful but necessary journey of becoming who you really are, separated from collective expectations. And you know what always happens at the beginning of this journey? Isolation. Because when you start questioning the roles imposed on you, when you refuse to continue being useful on other people's terms, you become a threat to the system. Comfortably asleep, people don't want to be awakened. They want you to continue in the same game, playing by the same rules, because your transformation is an uncomfortable mirror to their stagnation. So they pull away. Not because you're less valuable, but because you're becoming more authentic, and authenticity scares those who still live through appearances. Think about how many times you've molded yourself to fit into spaces that were never made for you. How many empty conversations you sustained just to not be alone. How many pieces of yourself you hid to not bother, not confront, not be too much or too little. You became an emotional chameleon, changing colors according to the environment, always adapting, always being useful. But chameleons get tired, and when you tire of changing colors, when you decide to just be, people who got used to your edited versions no longer recognize who you are. And you know what's most ironic? While you were busy being useful to everyone, who was being useful to you? Who asked you how you really were? Who cared about your dreams, your fears, your pains, when they didn't serve as entertainment or moral lessons? Utility is a one-way street disguised as reciprocity. You give, believing you're building bridges. But when you try to cross them back, you discover they only worked in one direction. If this idea has already resonated with you, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe to not miss this journey, because what we're unraveling here isn't just about distancing, it's about rebirth. Jung had a concept called the shadow, that part of us we repress, that we hide, that we deny because it's not socially acceptable. But the shadow isn't just the bad side. Sometimes the shadow is your inconvenient authenticity. It's the no you never said. It's the boundary you never imposed. It's the truth you swallowed to not cause discomfort. And when you start integrating your shadow, when you stop being useful and start being real, people who benefited from your denial don't know how to deal with your truth. Look, I'm not saying you should become selfish or insensitive. I'm saying there's an abysmal difference between genuinely contributing and erasing yourself to be accepted. Generosity comes from abundance. Compulsive utility comes from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of discovering that without your services you have no value. But this fear is a lie so well told it became truth in your mind. Think about the people who really love you, those rare, precious, authentic ones. They don't love you because you solve their problems. They love you even when you're broken, confused, without answers. They stay when you can give nothing but your presence. These people are rare because most were conditioned the same way you were, to believe that love is a transaction. But real love doesn't ask for resumes, doesn't demand proof of utility. Real love simply is. So when people pull away because you stop being useful, it's not you who lost, it's them. Because they never really knew you. They knew the version of you that served their purposes. And now that you're becoming whole, they don't have the emotional tools to deal with your complexity. This says more about their emotional poverty than about your value. Jung spent years in deep solitude during his individuation journey. He broke with Freud, lost colleagues, was criticized by the academic community. But it was in this desert that he found the most revolutionary ideas about the human psyche. It was in the absence of external validation that he discovered his internal truth. And he said, it's not the people who leave your life that cause the crisis. It's the illusion of connection finally being revealed for what it always was. But there's an even deeper secret that few know. The distancing isn't just about others abandoning you. It's about you finally having the courage to abandon false versions of yourself. It's about you pulling away from spaces where you were always a supporting character in a story that wasn't even yours. It's about you reclaiming your narrative, even if it means rewriting the script alone for a while. The loneliness you feel isn't the end. It's the interval between who you were and who you're becoming. It's the necessary silence before a new song. It's the fertile emptiness where seeds of authenticity finally have space to grow. You're not being rejected. You're being redirected. Think of it this way. Every real transformation requires death. Not physical death, but symbolic death. Death of the false ego, of constructed personas, of borrowed identities. And death hurts. Death feels like rejection. Death feels like you're doing everything wrong. But on the other side of death comes rebirth. And you're not reborn being useful. You're reborn being true. The people who pulled away because you stopped serving their purposes were hindering your process, not helping it. They were part of the old scenery, of the theatrical play you were tired of performing. And when you step off the stage, when you take off the costume, the audience leaves. But you know what happens then. You finally discover who you are without applause, without approval, without validation that was always conditional. Jung said the first half of life is about building an ego strong enough to navigate the world, but the second half is about deconstructing that ego to find the self, the true self. And in this deconstruction, you lose people, you lose illusions, you lose familiar comforts, but you gain something infinitely more valuable. You gain yourself. So don't pull away with fear, pull away with intention. Pull away, knowing you're not losing real connections. You're eliminating disguised transactions. You're not being left behind. You're moving forward to a place where the only utility that matters is truth. And truth, my friend, never goes out of style. It can be ignored, avoided, feared, but it never loses value. Look back a few years from now. You'll realize that the people who pulled away when you stopped being useful did you a favor. They cleared the path. They removed the excess. They forced you to find solidity within yourself, not in their approval. And in this painful but sacred process, you discovered you never needed them to be complete. You were always complete. You were just too busy serving to notice. Your only responsibility now is to your own soul, not to others' expectations, not to the roles they imposed on you, not to the utility that defined you. You're human, not a tool, and humans don't exist to serve systems. Humans exist to live, feel, create, love, fail, grow. All of this without needing permission. So if you're feeling lonely because you pulled away or because they pulled away from you, take a deep breath. You're not lost. You're being found by yourself. And this is the most important encounter of your life, because all other real connections, all the people who deserve to be on your journey, will only appear when you stop pretending and start existing. And existing for real scares many people, but it attracts the right ones. Like this video, if it touched something real in you. Comment below which role you're tired of playing, and subscribe to this channel, because we're just beginning to unearth truths the world prefers to keep hidden. Share this with that person who needs to hear it today, because maybe, just maybe, they're also pulling away, and they need to know they're not alone on this journey back to themselves.